Jang Mu-chol dismissed me before a gallery full of adventurers, then placed 5 crimson marriage seals beside 8,347 gold of debt. 7 mocked years ended with a sentence designed to keep hurting. Marry 5 women the association had discarded as broken. He called it debt consolidation. The gallery called it a harem for failures. I saw 5 names attached to clauses for food, lodging, gear, and obedience, while Jang explained that an F-rank husband with a useless bond system deserved wives no party wanted. Refusal meant prison for all 6 of us. I signed because 5 strangers would lose shelter if I did not, but I looked Jang in the eye before the ink dried. I promised nothing romantic, nothing grand. I only said his paper would not make them property. His smile told me humiliation was the point, and that he expected us to starve before the week ended. Han Seo-yeon arrived first, carrying a bow and 9 arrows. She had a full, feminine figure held rigid beneath a travel cloak, with a cinched waist and rounded hips, yet her face was winter. When sunlight flashed off a basin, she flinched hard enough to strike the wall and hated that I noticed. Min Hae-jin came behind her in a locked kennel cart, equally curvy beneath torn beast handler leathers, her dark braid tangled around a guarded face. The driver handed me the kennel key, as if he were delivering livestock. Hae-jin watched my fingers close around it and said contracts always reveal the owner eventually. I gave them the dry room and took the cot beneath the leak. Seo-yeon called courtesy another kind of performance. Hae-jin slept beside the locked kennel rather than near my door. Neither wanted a husband, and I did not blame them. Survival had placed my name where old betrayals were still bleeding. Jo Hye-won divided 1 heel of bread into 3 pieces and told us tomorrow's room charge would not accept apologies. Rats had overrun her cellar, ruining winter grain. She offered 1,006 gold if we cleared them before dawn, enough to buy supper and cut the association debt. Our inventory made the bounty feel like a joke. My cracked blade, Seo-yeon's 9 arrows, Hae-jin's bare hands, and no lamp oil. Seo-yeon said darkness helped her, but any sudden glare would fracture distance. Hae-jin warned that her mana sent enraged beasts, rats included. I asked what each woman could safely do instead of assigning positions. Seo-yeon chose the rear firing lane and counted every pace herself. Hae-jin chose the stairs, where she could read movement through scent without entering the swarm. Their surprise hurt more than suspicion. No party had begun by asking. We entered without a lamp. I dragged my cracked blade along the floor so Seo-yeon could map the aisle by sound, while Hae-jin named each surge before it reached us. The first 3 rats fell cleanly. Her arrows were not useless in darkness. They were frighteningly exact. The 4th shot pinned a rat inches from my boot. I thanked her instead of pretending I had dodged. That small honesty made her pause, not soften. Then Hae-jin hissed a warning. Beneath rot and grain, she smelled alchemical sunlight, a lure meant for glare wraiths, not cellar vermin. A rat struck a hidden trigger. White radiance burst between the shelves, and Seo-yeon's 5th arrow shattered against stone far from its target. I heard her breathing collapse. Somewhere above us, an association recorder clicked on. Jang had planted a sun lure and wanted her failure preserved. Seo-yeon froze with her bow half drawn, trapped in the bright place where another man had once promised protection and abandoned her. I could have ordered her to shoot. Instead, I crossed the swarm, wrapped my coat around the lure, and struck until the alchemical glass began to crack. A rat tore my calf while I shielded her eyes with my free arm. I told her where the dark began and asked whether she wanted my shoulder as cover. She nodded once. I did not call her broken or demand courage. I held still while she found the firing lane she had chosen. Her 6th arrow pierced the lure's core. Darkness returned, and crimson light answered inside my vision. Seo-yeon's love level rose from 0 to 7% because I broke the trap and protected the wound instead of blaming it. 700% power entered muscles that had never carried it. The power let me lift a fallen shelf, but not gracefully. My shoulder screamed under strength my body had never trained to guide. Hae-jin stood behind the kennel door, contract chain looped through its bars. The rats caught her mana scent and surged toward her like a single starving animal. Her marriage contract hung from my belt, its ownership clause naming her bonded beasts, future captures, and even her labor as my assets. I tore that page into narrow strips before her eyes, unlocked the kennel, and threw the key at her feet. Freedom had to exist before I asked for help. I told Heijin the stairs were hers to leave or defend. She stayed by choice, reading the swarm's turns and guiding me between them. The bond system marked 6%, not for paper alone, but because I surrendered control when control was what every previous contract had stolen from her. 13 combined. Love meant 1,300% power, exact and terrifying. It did not teach me swordsmanship. I swung too wide, buried the cracked blade in a beam, and nearly dislocated my shoulder pulling it free. Love had given me force. Wasting it could still kill us. Do-hyun called distances from behind my coat-darkened cover. Heijin read the pack's panic and directed me toward the grate, driving them inward. I followed both women without turning their trust into obedience. My job was simple: open the path their discarded skills had already found. I ripped the grate from the wall and bent it into a chute toward the alley. Heijin lowered her mana until the rats chased its fading scent outside, and Do-hyun severed the lure wire with her 7th arrow. We won without slaughtering the swarm or proving Jang's staged report. Haewon counted every rat gone, found the planted lure, and paid the promised 1,006 gold. The association debt fell to 7,341. We bought stew only after setting aside bandages, arrow repair, and tomorrow's room charge. My shoulder had torn where 1,300% force met an untrained F-rank joint. Do-hyun set the splint without warmth, but she did not let the knot slip. Heijin kept the kennel key in her own pocket. Their levels remained 7 and 6. Gratitude was not a shortcut to devotion. I divided the stew into equal bowls and put the bounty receipt between us. Do-hyun checked that her name appeared on the clear. Heijin checked that no capture rights had returned in the fine print. Courtship, I understood, could begin with food, but only honesty made the meal count. Haewon signed a public statement that the lure was sabotage and that all 3 of us cleared the cellar. 3 points of reputation were small against 7 years of ridicule, but they were witnessed. Jang had wanted footage of a broken archer. He received evidence of a planted trap. Do-hyun retrieved her 8th arrow from the ward and left the 9th untouched in her quiver. She said a husband who shields her once has proved only once. Heijin agreed that torn paper can be rewritten. Their coldness stayed, and I respected it more than false affection. The Crimson interface settled at 13 love and 1,300% power. I felt every bruise beneath it. If I mistook those numbers for ownership, I would become Jang by another name, wound the trust that created them, and lose the strength when we needed it most. Jang read Haewon's statement before breakfast. His sabotage had failed. Our debt had shrunk by 1,006 gold, and 2 women he called broken had earned a verified clear. He did not cancel the arrangement. He stamped 2 more marriage transfers and ordered them delivered together. At the inn, Do-hyun repaired a bowstring by the darkest window, while Heijin slept with the kennel open. I practiced lifting a water pail without letting borrowed force wrench my shoulder again. 1,300% meant nothing if I could not carry it without breaking. Then wheels stopped outside. Through the rain, I saw another association cart and 2 guarded silhouettes within it. My account closed at love 13, power 1,300%, F rank, reputation 3, and 7,341 gold in debt. Only 2 brides had arrived. Park Na-ri stepped from the cart, hugging a locked formula case against a full bust, narrow waist, and rounded hips hidden beneath an alchemist's coat. She introduced herself by warning me that the last man who called himself her future husband stole every recipe she trusted him to see. Yu Solbi followed in dark scribe robes fitted over an equally feminine, curvy frame. Black ink climbed the nerves of her hand like old lightning. When I reached only to steady a falling scroll case, she recoiled before I touched it and asked whether husbands here collected pain as proof of obedience. I showed them the dry room, the open kennel, and the torn ownership page. Neither mistook evidence for safety. Na-ri locked her case beneath her bed. Sulbi marked a line around hers and said crossing it without permission ended our arrangement. I agreed before asking how the hex worked. Lee Mi-so received our registration, while an order from Jang waited beneath her blotter. The official form labeled each wife a dependent asset, with her class output assigned to me. I crossed out the phrase and wrote equal partner 4 times, then invited each woman to read every remaining line. Do-hyun corrected her class name to Eclipse Archer. Haejin removed beast ownership rights. Nari reserved every formula and derivative under her name. Sulbi added that no seal could be applied to her body without explicit consent. I signed after them, where a witness belonged, not above them. I watched Miso press a clean copy beneath the desk before stamping the version Jang expected, though she warned our altered form might be rejected. Equal words did not raise a single love level. Paperwork could not manufacture trust. Still, Nari loosened her grip on the key, and Sulbi's marked hand eased. Oh Guangjin offered the only job our reputation could reach: contain a brewery's spoiled antidote, remove a crawling curse residue, and deliver one safe sample. Payment was 1,435 gold, but one escaped contaminant would erase the claim. The bottleneck was not steel. Nari believed any useful formula would be stolen, and Sulbi would not accept an unwanted hand even if a hex reached her skin. I asked both women to write the limits of the job. Their rules became our plan, not obstacles to work around. Do-hyun chose a dark roof lane, but her blackout hood leaked at the cheek. Haejin sensed a fevered boar trapped inside the brewhouse, maddened by toxin and her mana scent. We needed a cure, a curse vessel, and restraint before the vat split. We had no spare funds for failure. I repaired Do-hyun's hood to the measurements she gave me, adding a folded cheek guard instead of sealing her into darkness I chose. Then I asked which firing lane she trusted. She moved me twice, tested the dawn glare herself, and claimed the north roof without argument from me. When a glass vent flashed, I did not pull her away. I called the angle she requested and held a scrap shield where she had marked it. Her arrow severed the vent chain cleanly. Trusting her control after respecting her design earned 6 more %, raising her bond from 7 to 13. 13% from Do-hyun meant her contribution now carried 1,300% power, but the reason mattered more than the force. I had not improved her aim for her. I had repaired a tool to her body and surrendered the lane, so her own practiced skill could work. The boar charged when Haejin entered, driven wild by poison and the dense mana scent she had been taught to hate. I stepped between them only long enough to cut its chain, then placed my own supper in the trough and backed away. I made no binding gesture and claimed no future favor. Haejin lowered her eyes and matched the animal's breathing while it ate my barley cake. When it stumbled, she asked me to hold a gate, not the beast. I obeyed the distinction. The boar chose her shadow on its own and led us around the contaminated pools toward the central vat. Her love level rose from 6 to 11% because I fed a suffering creature without turning kindness into ownership, then trusted her chosen method. 5 authentic points added 500% power. The boar became a guide, proving mercy had solved terrain our blades could not. Nari found the antidote base, then saw her former fiancé's shorthand scratched across a stolen copy of her formula. Anger made the flask spit green fire. She called herself unstable before anyone else could. I asked her to name what she felt instead of swallowing it for our comfort. She said theft, humiliation, and fear in a voice that shook. The liquid separated into 3 clean bands. I copied her recovered formula once, sealed it under Park Nari's authorship, handed her the copy and my notes, then watched her lock both away beyond my access. 7% appeared because I protected her authorship when profit tempted every old wound, and because I listened to anger as information rather than failure. 700% joined my strength, while her honest emotions stabilized an antidote no forced calm had ever completed. Sailby wrote a containment hex from behind her boundary line. The curse obeyed, then rebounded along the ink into her nerves. She fell against the wall before the seal closed. Every instinct told me to catch her, but her stop signal was one raised finger, and I stopped outside her reach. I asked whether I could help. She said no touch. I placed clean bandages, water, and a wooden clamp within her reach, then turned my palms upward and waited. She wrapped her own wrist, directed me to brace the floor plate, and completed the seal without my pity becoming another restraint. Sulbi's level rose from 0 to 5% because I treated her refusal as an instruction, not a challenge, and gave her the means to tend herself. 500% followed. More important, her containment held because she had remained in command of her wounded body. The poisoned vat split before Nari's antidote finished resonating. 36 combined love gave me 3600% power, but no technique for holding curved copper. I planted both hands where Nari pointed and let her call every adjustment while hot metal peeled beneath my palms. I watched Do-hyun shoot 3 pressure valves from her chosen roof lane. Haejin guided the fevered boar and smaller animals through a clean corridor. Sulbi tightened her floor seal without anyone crossing her boundary. Their limits did not weaken the team. Those limits gave each action precision. Nari poured the final band only after saying she was afraid it would fail. Fear sharpened the resonance instead of souring it. The vat settled, the curse residue folded into Sulbi's vessel, and my arms held until the safe sample cooled. We had earned proof, not merely survived. The brewery owner accepted the antidote, then reached for Nari's formula case and called it part of the fee. I put the verified sample between his hand and hers. He had purchased containment, not authorship. If he withheld payment, Miso's registration copy and Guangjin's contract would expose him. Nari named the terms herself. The owner paid 1,435 gold and signed that Park Nari retained every recipe right. Our debt fell to 5,906. 4 more reputation points came from a clean claim witnessed under all 5 of our names. No love level rose during payment, exactly as the system's rule promised. Money could feed 6 people and repair gear, but it could not buy affection. We spent carefully on rice, ink salve, hood wax, beast medicine, and a door lock whose only key belonged to Nari. Miso compared the brewery claim with Jang's asset form and saw 4 women credited as partners in a verified clear. She hid our truthful registration beneath an old appeals ledger before the night supervisor arrived. One surviving copy could someday prove the household had refused Jang's ownership from the start. Back at the inn, Seo-yeon hung her fitted hood by the bow. Haejin saved half her ration for the recovering boar. Nari locked a formula bearing only her name. Sulbi drew a clear threshold and, for the first time, left a deliberate space where I could set tomorrow's bandages. My crimson account read Love 36, Power 3600%, F rank, Reputation 7, and 5,906 golden debt. 4 guarded women had not become devoted wives. They had each seen one boundary survive me, and outside, a rift opened above our roof. Our 5th wife arrived through the roof. A violet portal opened above the attic, dropped Che-eun-sol into a pile of blankets, and closed before the rain hit the floor. She rose with a full bust, narrow waist, and wide rounded hips beneath a courier coat, then searched for the exit before looking at us. Eun-sol held the 5th marriage seal and a courier satchel stained with ash. She told me her gates had no stable destination because no living anchor waited at the other end. The last party that promised to return had crossed her escape rift, sealed it, and left her alone beyond it for 19 days. I did not welcome her with another promise. I moved away from the only door, set her seal on the table, and said she could choose the room nearest the stairs. She remained standing until every wife had shown her an unlocked route outside. Survival, not affection, had delivered the 6 of us here. Guangjin arrived before dawn with 3 missing courier badges and 1 contract. Their relay rift had collapsed near the Salt Ravine. Recovery paid 2,079 gold after fees, enough for 6 meals, registration, roof boards, and another hard cut into our debt. We had 1 anchor crystal with an 11-second charge. An association inspector would observe Eun-sol's gate and revoke our quest license if it drifted beyond the marked circle. 3 people waited on the far side, and the contract paid nothing unless all 3 returned alive. Eun-sol called the job bait. I agreed it probably was, then asked her to name the return condition. She tied a small bell to a cord, looped the other end around my wrist, and said I had to cross first, return before the 11th chime, and stand beside the bell, not somewhere merely close. I returned Seo-yeon's quiver after repairing its rain flap, and did not count the arrows, she noticed. A man who trusted her inventory instead of auditing failure earned 5 careful points, moving her from 13 to 18%, and gave her room to plan shots without defending every choice. Jin found Moonfang fur snagged on one missing courier's badge, the first trace of the cub her guilt had sold. I helped map its scent without asking for loyalty, payment, or a promise to stay. 5 points followed, raising her from 11 to 16, because hope was hers, not leverage for me. Their 10 new points added 1,000% power, but the so what was preparation. I could now carry rescue rope and a courier together if needed. I still drilled the lift slowly, because 4,600% force could wrench an untrained grip apart as easily as save someone. Nari brewed a rift sickness tonic, and the liquid dulled whenever she pretended calm. I asked what anger needed naming. She said the association had sent 3 couriers into a fault it knew was unstable. Her voice sharpened. The tonic cleared and held a precise silver ring. I labeled the bottle Park Nari's Stable Transit Tonic and repeated her method back without softening the emotion that made it work. 6 earned points moved her from 7 to 13. Her honesty produced medicine we could trust, while 600% more power widened my margin for carrying the injured. Sailbee's old rebound wound opened while she inscribed the return cord. When she raised 2 fingers, I stopped winding the bandage and set it within reach. I resumed only after she said where to brace the cloth. Obeying the stop signal earned 4 points, moving her from 5 to 9. Unsol opened the rift while the inspector watched its edge scrape beyond the circle by an inch, then 2. She looked ready for me to withdraw and prove her right. I tied her bell cord to my wrist, repeated the exact return point, and stepped through before fear could become another broken promise. The far side was a ruined relay station beneath a copper sky. The gate shrank behind me, and the cord pulled toward empty air while the bell sounded across worlds. I found one courier pinned under stone, cut him free, and heard the 8th chime before I reached the threshold. Power could have tempted me to surge deeper, but the promise came first. I lifted the courier with trained footing, followed the bell rather than the shifting view, and crossed on the 10th chime. I landed beside Unsol exactly where she had marked, carrying proof that return meant a place, not an excuse. Unsol stared at the cord between us as if it had contradicted the world. Her love level rose from 0 to 8, not because I crossed first, but because I returned when promised and chose her ringing bell over easier ground. 800% power arrived with a reason I could never counterfeit. The combined account reached 64 love and 6,400% power. The gain meant I could brace a drifting rift longer, but only if Unsol opened it again by choice. I asked. She swallowed, retied the bell, and said 2 couriers remained beyond a gate already learning to fail. The rescued man woke long enough to warn us that someone with Jang Mu Chol's seal had moved the relay markers. This was not random drift. The inspector ordered us to stop, yet the contract's abandonment clause would declare the other 2 dead and strip Unsol's license anyway. We crossed as a team. So-yun shot sand-marked ropes through the copper haze. Hae-jin tracked the couriers beneath the rift's metallic scent. Nari dosed the injured with her silver tonic. Sulbi fixed a return hex to the floor, while Unsol counted 11 seconds allowed. We found the 2nd courier conscious and the 3rd hanging beyond a collapsed span. The anchor crystal began to dim with both still inside. I could carry one immediately or spend our last seconds reaching the other. Leaving either meant no pay, no rank review, and a death on Unsol's conscience. I planted my feet at the gate and asked Unsol where home was. She pointed toward the bell beyond the rift, not the association marker. I pulled against the collapsing edge with 6,400% force, giving Seo-yeon 1 clear rope shot and Hae-jin time to guide both couriers across. The crystal died at 11 seconds. Love did not create another charge, but it let my trained body hold the frame Unsol had already made. My palms split, my knees buckled, and I bought 9 extra seconds, 1 painful breath at a time, while the women moved the injured through. Seul-bi called the safe footfalls. Nari kept my shaking grip from going numb with measured tonic. So-yeon crossed after her last rope, and Hae-jin carried the final courier's legs. Unsol remained beside me, refusing the old pattern where everyone escaped through her and sealed the path behind. We stepped together toward the bell. The rift tried to throw us onto a harbor roof, then a flooded alley, but Unsol fixed on the cord around my wrist and the 5 women waiting at our chosen side. The gate opened inside the circle, and the inspector's revocation stamp stopped above the page. All three couriers testified that Jang's sealed agent had shifted their marker before the collapse. The inspector could bury suspicion, but not the timed gate record. 3 living witnesses and our complete objective. 12 reputation points replaced 7, and the clear qualified us for E rank. Guangjin paid 2,079 gold after registration fees. Our debt fell to 3,827. We bought roof boards, 6 plain meals, fresh curse cloth, bow wax, tonic glass, beast salve, and 1 replacement bell. Nothing extravagant enough to pretend affection. My rank became E, but the women had solved the rescue. So-Yun's rope shots, Haejin's tracking, Nari's stable tonic, Sulbi's footfall seal, and Unsol's chosen anchor turned raw force into a result. Rank measured witnessed work. It did not make me the owner of theirs. I watched Unsol keep the original bell. She hung it inside her room, then marked the inn on her courier map in ink rather than chalk. She remained guarded, and 8% was not a cure for 19 abandoned days. It was one promise kept precisely enough to survive examination. The other bonds held at 18, 16, 13, and 9%. No one gained love from the rank badge or payment. That steadiness reassured me. The system could count feeling, but it could not flatter me. Tomorrow would require new acts, not interest on yesterday's kindness. My account closed at Love 64, Power 6400%, E rank, Reputation 12, and 3,827 gold in debt. On the recovered relay marker, Jang's seal sat beneath a map to a quarry filled with artificial sunlight. Guangjin's next contract named the Brightstone Quarry, and I watched Seo-Yeon's face close before he named the prey. 6 workers had died there. The bounty paid 2,389 gold, but her former protector had used a sun lure there and left her blind among monsters. She said she would go because an archer who refuses the bright remains the joke everyone remembers. I told her refusing was allowed, and the debt would remain mine too. She studied me, then chose the hunt on one condition. Inside the quarry, her retreat call outranked my pride, the bounty, and every system number. I agreed without promising that nothing would happen. Empty safety had failed her before. I promised only actions I could control. Listen to her range calls, retreat when ordered, and return for her if separated. Her love level stayed at 18. Words before proof deserved no reward. For 3 mornings, Seo-Yeon trained me at sunrise. She blindfolded me, called distances in odd paces, and made me cross loose stone by her voice alone. I hit the ground 11 times. Each fall taught my body that following her guidance was technique, not surrender. Then we reversed roles. I described the glare without grabbing her shoulders or choosing her route. She corrected every vague word until I could call angle, color, height, and pulse. Courtship looked less like flowers and more like learning the language that might keep her alive. No percentages moved during practice. Repetition was time, not a trick, and the system refused to pay me for performing patience. Still, the grind mattered. 6,400% power would be useless inside mirrored stone if I could not place one trained step where Seo-Yeon directed. The quarry master had chained 3 dusk hares as bait. I asked Haejin to calm them rather than sacrifice them. She chose a scent corridor that kept them outside the wraith's reach. 5 earned points moved her from 16 to 21 because I valued frightened lives she could hear. Nari warned her flash draught might divide under pressure. I told her she could abort the throw and lose the fee before risking herself or us. 4 points raised her from 13 to 17. The permission mattered because her old fiancé had treated every dangerous success as owed. I copied Sulbi's safe distance rules onto my bracer and repeated them before entry. 7 points moved her from 9 to 16. Then I helped Unsol mark a return gate before pursuit, earning 4 points from 8 to 12 because home would remain visible even if the target ran. We entered with love 84 and power 8,400%. Seo-Yeon led by shadow, not sight, while Haejin's calm bait path drew the glare wraith between shaded screens. Nari carried her unstable flash draught capped, and Sulbi kept me beyond the rebound radius she had written. The first artificial sun ignited above us. Then 14 more answered from the walls. Mirrored lures disguised as survey lamps. Seo-yeon's arrow flew wide, and her bow struck stone. The quarry exit slammed shut behind a subcontractor, wearing the association's hidden brass pin. I wanted to charge the saboteur. Seo-yeon called retreat, sharp and immediate. Every instinct said forward was faster, stronger, more heroic. I turned anyway and followed her voice into a narrow shadow pocket, while the wraith struck the place where my pride would have kept me. Seo-yeon counted 5 of us in the cleft, then saw her bow outside and said, "Leave it." Her old protector had made the same calculation with her body. I did not tell her the bow mattered more than she did. I asked for a retrieval path and waited until she gave one. Blindfolded, I crossed on her shouted ranges. 7 paces left, drop, 3 forward, wait for the pulse. 9,100% power had not arrived yet. I used the strength already earned and the discipline she had drilled into me to reach the bow without chasing the saboteur. I returned when she called retreat again and placed the bow at her feet without demanding a shot. Following her first retreat and returning for what she had dropped earned 7 points, raising Seo-yeon from 18 to 25. The result was trust with a practical edge. Our archer had her weapon. Combined love reached 91, and power became 9,100%. The increase gave me force enough to break the mirror cage, but not the location of its locking spine. Every reflection showed a different wraith. Seo-yeon's sight could not distinguish the real threat in that glare. Hae-jin lowered the dusk hares into a sanctuary ring instead of sending them running. Their ears turned toward a sound none of us could hear. Nari aborted her flash draught when it split amber, preserving us at the cost of an easy opening. I thanked her for stopping. Sail B traced the hostile light curse from the mirrored floor, while I stayed at her written distance. Unsol kept the return mark open, rather than pursuing a tempting exit shimmer. Each boundary denied Jang's trap the panic it needed, and each wife's discarded flaw became a different instrument. Seo-yeon covered her own eyes. She said the wraith's threat tugged along the new bond like a line beyond sight, faint but distinct from every reflected lure. I did not adjust her elbow or name a target. I planted myself where she ordered and trusted a sense neither of us fully understood. I watched her arrow curve away from the visible wraith, pass behind a mirrored shutter, and strike flesh. The hidden subcontractor screamed. His control rod fell, and 3 lures died. Seo-yeon's glare had become cover. No watcher could tell where her threat-seeking shot had chosen to travel. The bond sense did not erase her wound or hand her mastery. It revealed a use she would have to practice. Her fingers shook after the shot, and I held my position until she asked for my arm. Choosing when support touched her mattered as much as landing the impossible arrow. With the control rod broken, Sulbi identified the mirror spine beneath 6 curse lines. Nari used the stable half of her draft to mark it crimson. Hae-jin moved the dusk hares into cover, and Unsol widened our chosen return gate by the width of 1 shoulder. I struck the marked spine with 9,100% force, using the footwork Seo-yeon had drilled rather than a wild swing. Stone split, but my knuckles tore and the wraith dove. Raw power opened the cage. It did not finish a hunt built around an unseen enemy. Seo-yeon's second bond sense arrow followed the threat through falling mirror shards and pierced the wraith's dark core. Sunlight flooded the bowl, yet she remained behind her blindfold and named our exit herself. We left through Unsol's marked gate with all 3 bait animals alive. The quarry workers had seen the exit lock and heard Seo-yeon command the retreat that saved us. They watched her kill the glare wraith under the light meant to disgrace her. 6 reputation points raised us from 12 to 18, overturning the staged failure before Jang could edit the record. Gwang Jin verified the clear and paid 2,389 gold. Our debt fell to 1,438. We repaired the bow, replenished curse ink, bought tonic salts and beast feed, and reserved the rest for the next registered job. The subcontractor refused to name Jang, but his control rod carried the same brass seal found on the courier marker. Proof was accumulating in small, stubborn pieces. Rank remained E because 1 bounty did not replace a formal review, and we accepted the grind instead of demanding applause. Seo-yeon practiced at sunset with cloth over her eyes. Her first arrow missed the target by 4 feet, the second by 11 inches, and the third bent toward a rat stalking the grain sack. Bond sense was not mastery yet. She smiled at the work, not at me, and that was enough. Jin unfolded a notice taken from the subcontractor's code. An illegal association auction listed one conditioned Moonfang cub as transferable loot. The sale closed in 2 days. Entry required a bond we could barely afford, while the animal's injuries demanded medicine we did not have. My account read, Love 91, Power 9100%, E rank, Reputation 18, and 1,438 gold in debt. We had won the quarry by obeying trust. The next fight would ask whether we could rescue a creature without buying either its freedom or Heijin's heart. The auction notice in my hand named Heijin's Moonfang Cub Lot 73. The sketch showed a restraint scar across its muzzle and conditioning runes at the neck. Heijin recognized one torn ear, then folded the paper so carefully that rage had nowhere visible to go. Entry required an auction bond. The cub also needed anti-rune medicine, blood salts, and a no-kill restraint before the sale closed at dusk. We owed 1,438 gold. We could not fund both entry and treatment, and buying the cub would only validate the word loot. Guangjin found one path. Capture a feral Moonfang pack alive, collect its emergency bounty, and use the verified beasts to enter as licensed handlers. I told Heijin rescue would follow her terms. Her love stayed at 21. Promises made beside an empty purse were still only breath. Moon Tae-gil built a live capture rig from padded cable and bent spring steel, then extended exactly one job of credit. He warned that 12,000 pounds of Moonfang pack could tear it apart. Killing one beast voided the bounty, but tightening too hard could maim what we claimed to save. Nari blended a sedative that would dull conditioning without suppressing Heijin's mana scent. Sulbi wrote release knots rather than binding curses. Unsol marked an extraction circle large enough for the pack. Soyeon asked me whether I trusted a blind covering shot at full charge. I said yes, then proved it by placing my route where she chose, rather than somewhere safer to my eyes. We drilled the crossing 3 times. No love moved during rehearsal, but the work gave our 9100% power a no-kill method instead of turning superior force into slaughter. The pack attacked from the sunward ridge, where snow glare erased depth for Seoyeon and blinded me outright. She ordered me beneath a dead pine, drew with cloth over her eyes, and said her next arrow would pass close enough to cut my sleeve. I trusted her bond sense over my useless sight. Her arrow crossed behind my neck, severed the alpha's conditioning whistle, and curved into the rig's release pin. The padded net opened above the pack instead of crushing it. Trusting that unseen shot with my body earned 8 points, moving Seoyeon from 25 to 33. 800% more power let me catch the descending frame before its weight broke 3 wolves' legs. The so what was not a harder strike. It was control enough to lower steel at Heijin's count, while Soyeon's impossible line preserved every animal beneath it. Heijin refused to dominate the trapped alpha. She opened Sulbi's release knots one by one, and let her dense mana scent spread without a command. The pack raged, then began matching her breathing. I held the frame, not the wolves, and waited for her to decide whether the sanctuary was real. When the alpha lowered its head, we fitted loose transit loops the pack could break in an emergency. The bounty inspector recorded a live capture without blood. Heijin gained no love from my strength. This was her mastery beginning, and I would not place my name over it. The pack clear earned our entry bond and handler status before dusk. We spent the remaining advance on anti-rune medicine instead of debt relief. The grind had created a rescue window, but one wrong claim inside the auction could still let Jang's seizure order take every beast present. We entered with the captured pack calm behind Heijin and found Lot 73 chained beneath a sail lantern. A buyer recognized Nari's resonance medicine and offered to cover our debt in exchange for her recipe rights. The amount could have solved the auction without a fight. I refused before asking Nari to bargain against her own wound. I stated that Park Nari's formulas were not mine to sell, then let her set a price for one finished dose with no copying rights. 5 earned points moved her from 17 to 22 because profit did not outrank her authorship. The buyer paid her stated fee, and she used the dose herself on the cub's restraint wound. I did not touch the coin or the formula case. 500% more power joined me, but the practical gain was Nari standing at the cage as accredited healer rather than hidden equipment. The cub smelled Heijin, whimpered once, then conditioning fire turned its eyes white. It lunged at her throat. I could have broken its jaw with our power. Instead, I dropped my blade, knelt unarmed beside Heijin, and trusted her warning that pain would only deepen the command. I placed the freedom papers on the floor and signed ownership away to the Moonfang itself. No husband, guild, handler, or creditor could sell it again. Then I slid the page within scent range and kept my hands open while its teeth stopped an inch from my neck. Heijin's love rose from 21 to 28 because I accepted danger beside her and gave the cub freedom without making either of them my reward. 700% followed. Her mana scent changed from a provocation into a brief sanctuary, and the cub's white eyes cleared. The auction master invoked Jang's seizure order, claiming every beast and treatment formula as association collateral. A legal hex raced from the dais toward Sulbi, shaped to rebound through her body and force our signatures. Her old parties had survived by making her absorb exactly this pain. I stayed behind the safe distance line on my bracer and asked whether she wanted the seal broken. Sulbi said no. She wanted it returned. I trusted her method, braced only the anchor plate she named, and let her turn the rebound path into a two-way channel. The seizure hex struck the auction master's own signature and bound his hands to the ledger. 7 earned points moved Sulbi from 16 to 23 because I let her reflect the harm instead of praising endurance. 700% arrived, while her body remained standing and unclaimed. Miso's hidden registry key opened the vault ledger, exposing sold beasts, stolen class rights, and Jang's personal seizure codes. The guards charged before we could copy it. At 12,400% power, I could stop them without killing, but only while the wives moved first. Seo-yeon pinned weapons with unseen shots. Heijin's sanctuary laid the captive pack down beyond the command whistles. Nari's vapor dulled aggression, and Sulbi reflected restraint seals into empty cages. Unsal opened our marked extraction gate and counted every person and animal through. I remained last, holding the guards with broken tables instead of broken bodies. Unsal saw me choose the dangerous side, then return before the gate closed. 6 points moved her from 12 to 18 because I did not escape first or leave her waiting. We stepped home with the ledger together. Miso verified the ledger while Guangjin filed the live capture claim and illegal sale reward. They yielded 4,355 gold after fees. We cleared 1,438 of debt and held 2,917. 7 reputation points moved us from 18 to 25 as former buyers identified their signatures. The no-kill pack clear, auction rescue, and witnessed restraint qualified us for D rank. Jang's clerk tried to delay the stamp, but Miso placed the verified ledger number beside it in permanent ink. No bond rose from the payment, debt relief, or promotion. That absence mattered. Money bought veterinary care, repaired gear, and 6 beds without liens. Rank opened safer contracts. Neither could purchase 1%. Every point in our account still corresponded to a choice one wife had freely believed. Hyejin set the freedom paper beside the cub and opened the courtyard gate. It could leave. The Moonfang sniffed the road, circled her twice, and lay down against her boot by choice. Her love remained 28. The cub's choice was not a romantic payment to me. I knew its wounds still needed weeks of medicine, and Heijin still checked every contract for hidden ownership. Soyeon still trained blind. Nari locked her recipes. Sulbi kept her boundary, and Unsal kept the bell. Progress had not erased the 5 reasons they arrived cold. My account closed at love 124, power 12,400%, D rank, reputation 25, and 2,917 golden funds. The cub was not loot, the wives were not power sources, and Jang now knew we possessed his auction ledger. I woke with 12,400% behind my ribs, and only 2,917 gold in our ledger. Power could break a gate, but it could not buy the marsh reagents. O Guangjin spread across our breakfast table. I read that 32 villagers were coughing black foam, and the posted cure bore Nari's former fiancé's seal. She checked the ratios once, then pressed both hands flat. The recipe was hers, down to the odd 7-beat cooling pause he used to mock. The batch contract paid 8,913 gold, but only after a public assay. Nari said a husband who saw that figure would claim her work eventually. I did not deny her fear. I asked what ownership would make taking it impossible. At Miso's desk, I signed away every present and future claim to Nari's formulas, derivatives, notes, and sale rights. I paid the filing costs from our operating purse, then handed Nari the only sealed original before I kept so much as a copy. The crimson panel moved only after she read every clause herself. Nari, 22 to 23. That 1% came from enforceable ownership, not my signature's flourish. Its consequence was 100% more power, and her shoulders finally lowering. Her former fiancé arrived smiling, called the filing marital theater, and challenged her cure to a paired test. Jang approved his complaint before either cauldron was lit. I asked Nari whether we should walk away. She chose the test and named every condition. We budgeted 2,487 gold for reed salt, glasswort, fever pearl, and sealed flasks, plus 700 for assay and transport. No miracle paid those costs. Our previous clears did, leaving every broken vial dangerous. Jin found a healed marsh lynx that traders valued as a familiar. I opened its travel cage while she watched and helped carry it beyond the scent line. She rose from 28 to 30 because I chose release twice, and nearby beasts stopped clawing their pens. Do-hyun rejected the bright watchtower and redrew our night guard through reed shadows. With range calls I had to memorize. I accepted 3 revisions without mentioning her glare flaw. Trusting her design moved her from 33 to 35 and closed a smuggler's approach. Nari ordered heat at 63 heartbeats, 3 turns left, then a 7-beat rest. When her anger made the liquid hum, I did not tell her to calm down. I asked her to name it. She said theft, humiliation, and fear. The resonance settled into clean rings. Nari reached 25 when I recorded her spoken feelings as catalyst data under her name. Then 26 when I repeated every instruction without improving it. 2 earned points meant 200%, and the first test file stayed brilliantly stable. My task was not to inspire a genius speech. I ground bitterroot until my palms split, kept the flame where she marked it, and read back every ratio. Her control came from honest emotion plus practiced craft. The bond system merely counted the trust between us. I watched the control cup blacken when it should have turned silver. Nari smelled grave moss, an ingredient absent from both recipes, while her former fiancé shouted that her feelings had spoiled another brew. Jang's crystal recorder faced her shaking hands. I asked her what to do, loudly enough for every witness. She ordered everyone back 11 paces and told me to seal the poisoned cup under glass. Following her exact emergency sequence moved Nari from 26 to 27. The consequence was no vapor reaching the sickbeds. Seul B traced a ward around the sample, then told me to wait outside it. I did, even as the accused alchemist laughed. She invited me in only after fixing the rebound path. Respecting that threshold moved her from 23 to 26, and the poison stayed contained. Jang declared Nari unstable before the clean batch was tested. I wanted to answer with my rank, but she touched the ledger and shook her head. So I requested chromatography, witness seals, and chain of custody review, the procedure she had specified. Do-hyun spotted a wet boot print behind the control table, called the angle, and trusted me to collect rather than chase. I followed her night watch design exactly. She rose from 35 to 38, adding 300% as the hidden injector was recovered intact. Unsal rejected the association delivery coordinate as compromised and drew a route from our in-kitchen to each marsh marker. I used her home map without shortening it. She climbed from 18 to 21. 3 precise gates delivered clean flasks beyond the saboteur's reach. The grave moss dose had entered my skin through the cracked glass. My pulse dropped before anyone understood. Nari told me her antidote was potent but unverified. I asked the risk, heard her full answer, and chose the measured dose without invoking marriage or power. I admitted I was afraid of dying, and worse, of making her cure carry my name. Nari used that fear as a clean counter-resonance. She rose from 27 to 28, because I gave her truth instead of heroic calm, and the black vein stopped at my elbow. Hei Jin held the fever beasts in an open sanctuary while I convulsed, and I guarded its edge without closing a single chain. That repeated freedom moved her from 30 to 33. Her mana sense softened, and every frightened creature lay down instead of stampeding. Nari made me wait 9 full minutes before claiming success. Then my pulse steadied, the assay strip cleared, and the villagers received doses by weight. Her honest anger did not destabilize the brew. Measured and spoken, it made each antidote stronger than the stolen copy. When the first child breathed cleanly, I credited Park Nari over the public crystal and recited her registration number. She rose from 28 to 29. That final point brought another 100%, while her authorship reached every association archive at once. Seulbi found the sabotage curse nested inside the counterfeit seal. I waited for her invitation, held only the edge she offered, and released when she said stop. She climbed from 26 to 31. The 500% gain let me endure the seal's backlash while she trapped it. The settlement paid 8,913 gold after the verified final batch. Reagents cost 2,487 and assay transport 700, so 5,726 entered our funds. Exactly. Not a coin of love purchased. Seo-yeon ran the returning night watch from her own shadow lanes. I took her range call over my sight twice, and she rose from 38 to 42. 400% followed, while her arrows pinned 2 plague wraiths without exposing the medicine carts. Hyejin walked the freed links to the marsh edge, and I refused a handler's 311 gold offer without asking her. She rose from 33 to 35. The extra 200% helped me lift the flooded cart, but the lynx chose its own road. Unsal set the last crate beside our stove because home, not an association pin, anchored her route. I thanked her for choosing the path and took no shortcut. She moved from 21 to 25. 4 gates landed within a handspan, and 400% answered. Nari placed 1 blue bottle on the mantle. Park Nari, Resonance Alchemist. She let me stand beside her for the photograph, then rested her head against my shoulder after asking if I was steady. Nothing more was owed. The quiet itself felt like courtship. Our total love stood at 162, power at 16,200%, reputation 33, and funds 8,643 gold. Then, Sulbi opened a chapel contract bearing the command glyph of the party that abandoned her. Sulbi's former leader entered our inn with 3 cursed survivors and a contract worth 11,276 gold. He did not ask whether she would help. He pointed to the vessel clause and said her body already knew the work. Sulbi went still before he touched the table. I moved beside her, but kept both hands visible and asked one question. Did she want him gone? She said she wanted the chapel cleared, not his terms. I tore out the vessel page and kept the objective. Zhang answered within the hour by placing our C-rank review inside that same sealed chamber. Refusal meant no promotion. Failure meant Sulbi's license. I told her rank could wait. She said no. The chapel could not keep hurting people and wrote her own conditions. Seudbi's first condition gave her sole veto over every seal, route, contact, and retreat. I signed beneath it before the reward line. She rose from 31 to 33 because I made her stop authority binding, and 200% arrived with legal control. Her former leader called that pity dressed as respect. I asked Sulbi whether she wanted an answer. She said no, so I let the insult stand. She moved from 33 to 34. The earned 100% steadied my breathing while his command glyph twitched. Miso sealed our version and recorded the price. 1,987 gold for word ink and nerve medicine, plus 646 for review and chapel access. Profit mattered, but Sulbi's body would not be entered as a cost. We rehearsed 3 signals. Open palm meant approach, 2 fingers meant release, and no meant everything stopped. Sulbi set a practice seal between us. When it flared, I froze outside the line instead of grabbing her wrist, and she rose from 34 to 35. Nari asked what I felt before mixing the ward tonic. I admitted that the thought of failing Sulbi made me terrified and angry. Na-ri used both emotions instead of a false calm. She climbed from 29 to 32, and 3 stable silver doses formed. Hei-jin brought chapel hounds into an open chalk sanctuary. I held the outer line, but refused the former party's iron collars. She rose from 35 to 38. 300% strengthened my guard, while the hounds chose to remain without chains. The chapel swallowed light at the threshold. Seo-yeon marked the dark with whistling arrows and told me to close my eyes, count 2 echoes, then step. I followed sound over sight. She rose from 42 to 45, and each safe footfall disproved the route Jang supplied. Eun-sol opened short gates only to position Sulbi approved. I returned through the first one carrying ward stones instead of chasing a reliquary. She moved from 25 to 28, 300% followed, and her exits landed behind our living line. At the nave's center, the former party shoved a cursed survivor towards Sulbi. I caught the man's armor without touching her, then waited for her verdict. She ordered a quarantine ring. Her authority, not my strength, determined where every body stood. I saw the command glyph ignite under Sulbi's boots. Her knees buckled, black script racing up old nerve scars. Her former leader spoke the buried trigger as if he still owned her pain, and the chamber tried to force every curse back through her body. I stepped toward her. Sulbi whispered, "No." I stopped with my hand half raised while the glyph burned us both. She rose from 35 to 37 because her refusal cost us time, and I obeyed anyway. 200% came, but no trust was sacrificed for speed. Seo-yeon called 3 hidden anchors by sound. I struck only where her arrows rang and never opened my eyes. She climbed from 45 to 49. 400% let me crack the outer stones, while her unseen route kept the curse from finding her glare-blind angle. Breaking the anchors released 7 curse wraiths among Hei-jin's hounds. I planted myself at her sanctuary edge and blocked the wraiths, but left the retreat gap she had marked. She rose from 38 to 41 because I protected choice, not a cage. When 2 hounds fled through that gap, I let them go instead of using them as shields. Hei-jin rose from 41 to 44. 3 more earned points brought 300%, and the remaining pack answered her sanctuary call without frenzy. Na-ri needed a stronger catalyst and asked whether I still feared the seal. I said I feared wanting control more than I feared pain. She used the confession in a 9-drop amplifier, rising from 32 to 35. The brew held because honesty had a measurable rhythm. Cell B found the hidden design. The rebound was never meant for one body. 2 willing channels could turn it into a mirror, but only if she opened the path. I did not volunteer her. I knelt outside the seal and waited while the chapel shook. She raised an open palm and asked for mine. Only then did I place it against hers. Sulbi rose from 37 to 39. 200% entered the socket, and the curse split evenly instead of carving through her nerves alone. Pain tore up my arm, but I did not tighten my grip. She gave the 2-finger release signal, and I let go before asking why. She climbed from 39 to 40. Another 100% vanished from the circuit with me, proving her boundary governed even our best weapon. Na-ri heard my fear spike and adjusted the amplifier by 1 drop rather than ordering calm. I named the pain until she found its clean resonance. She rose from 35 to 38. 300% kept me upright without numbing Sulbi's control signals. Seulbi invited my palm again, this time on her count. We closed the 2-way seal, caught the command glyph's rebound, and reflected it toward its author. She rose from 40 to 41. The last 100% meant the curse obeyed consent, not ownership. Her former leader fell beneath the pain he had stored in her, alive and conscious. I wanted to strike him. Sulbi ordered me to hold the seal instead, so I did. The C-rank witnesses saw her spare him and saw that her body was nobody's shield. The clear bell rang while 1 survivor remained below. Loot chests were already surfacing, but Eun-sol opened a gate toward his voice. I stepped through, carried him back, and returned last instead of claiming the reliquary beside us. Eun-sol rose from 28 to 31 when I chose the survivor, then to 34 when I came through her closing gate exactly as promised. 600% followed across those 2 acts, and her route stayed stable until my boots reached home stone. Do-hyun's arrows guided the stretcher through falling dust, and I followed every sound marker without taking command back. Hae-jin's free hounds found the remaining curse nests. Their mastered flaws completed the review evidence my strength alone never could. The chapel paid 11,276 gold. Ink and medicine cost 1,987. Review and access cost 646. 8,643 remained, carrying our funds to 17,286. Miso stamped C rank after the witnessed clear, and reputation reached 42. Sulbi burned the vessel clause herself. Later, she sat close enough for our shoulders to meet, then took my hand by choice. I stayed still until her fingers tightened first. Our total love stood at 206, and power at 20,600%. Before the warmth could settle, an alarm split the street. 47 miners were trapped beyond the abyss route, the rift Unsol's old party had sealed behind them. I learned that 47 miners were trapped beneath a roof expected to fail in 103 minutes. Our shortest path was Unsol's abyss route, the gate her old party crossed before sealing it behind them and leaving her alone in the dark. The rescue contract offered 18,941 gold, but we had one anchor crystal and no replacement. Kwon Si-woo arrived with his sovereign spear and said an unstable wife should open the gate while useful adventurers crossed. I asked Unsol whether we took the route. She corrected the map, set 3 return rules, and said yes. I accepted all 3 without promising what I could not control. She rose from 34 to 36, and 200% steadied the forming rim. We spent 4,478 gold on anchor reinforcement, medicine, rope, and brace plates. Every piece had to move through one unstable rift. If the crystal cracked, my power could hold stone, but could not tell Unsol where home was. Narai dictated a stabilizer ratio of 17, 9, 4, then 2 cooling breaths. I repeated it from memory and credited her over the rescue channel. She rose from 38 to 41, 300% followed, and the crystal stopped shedding sparks. Sail B offered a protective seal that would share rift shock through my nerves. I asked her limits, accepted the pain she described, and let her place it only after her open palm signal. She moved from 41 to 44. The seal held without rebounding into her. Unsol's first gate opened onto the ledge, where she had waited 3 days for people who never returned. I wanted to step first. She told me to wait until she heard our in-bell through the seam. I obeyed, and her destination stopped drifting. When she gave the word, I crossed beside her rather than ahead. Unsol rose from 36 to 39. 3 earned points added 300%, and the far rim locked to our kitchen's warm memory instead of the association coordinate. Do-hyun could see nothing through the mineral glare, so she assigned sound-marred arrows and gave me the evacuation calls. I repeated them until she approved. She climbed from 49 to 52. The first blind shaft mapped a safe tunnel bend. We found support bolts sawn almost through, not broken by pressure. A miner with a crushed leg had seen an association team work under Jang's seal the night before. Kwon told him to save accusations from men strong enough to survive them. Dust erased every visible lane. Do-hyun called left, low, then halt. I followed without checking the falling shapes myself. She rose from 52 to 56, bringing 400%, and her arrows cut 3 collapsing cables before they swept the stretcher line. Hae-jin's Moonfang cub caught a shard protecting a miner. I carried the wounded cub exactly where she directed, while she faced the tunnel pack. She rose from 44 to 47. My added strength bore the braces, but her sanctuary kept the beasts calm. Kwon crossed first, tore the anchor crystal from its bracket, and carried it toward the surface route. The portal bent at once. He said I could save my rank, or stay with a woman whose own party had already measured her worth. I did not answer him. I asked Unsol which side needed me. She pointed to the unstable rim and said, "Stay." I stayed while Kwon's light vanished. She rose from 39 to 42. 300% returned, and home sharpened behind her like a held star. Selby's seal began cutting too deeply as the rift twisted. She ordered me to one knee and reduced the channel herself. I obeyed instead of demanding more protection. She moved from 44 to 46. 200% replaced what restraint cost, without using her pain as fuel. Jin opened a sanctuary circle around miners and tunnel beasts together. I guarded its broken side, but left 2 exits free, even when the foreman begged for chains. She rose from 47 to 50. The pack stopped attacking and began carrying rope to the injured. Nari heard my voice shake over the channel and changed the stabilizer by 3 drops. I admitted the fear instead of hiding it from the catalyst. She rose from 41 to 44. The brew turned clear, buying Unsol 7 more precise gate cycles. Unsol chose our kitchen table, the repaired roof, and 5 pairs of boots by the door as anchors. I repeated each memory without turning it into a grand vow. This gate required lived details. It widened because home was specific, shared, and freely chosen. The roof dropped before the 11th miner crossed. I caught a brace plate with 23,800% behind me, but power tore my forearms and taught the old lesson again. Force was not skill, and stone did not care about love. Seo-yeon called each falling seam through the dust. I moved only on her signals, trusting the final shot I could not see. She rose from 56 to 59. 300% reinforced my stance, while her arrow found the sabotaged keystone behind us. Nari told me the amplifier's safe limit was 1 more dose. I repeated her limit publicly and refused Kwan's abandoned reserve vial. She climbed from 44 to 47. 300% came from trusting her no, and my heart kept a survivable rhythm. We counted every traveler aloud. 21, 34, 46. Unsol refused to close after the last standing miner because the wounded foreman still lay behind me. I did not order efficiency. I held the brace and told her the count was hers. Jin sent the Moonfang cub through, then let it decide whether to return for her. I did not call or hold it. She rose from 50 to 52. 200% strengthened my failing grip, and the cub came back freely with the final rope. Seul B felt her seal near the nerve limit and gave the release signal. I dropped the shared channel immediately, losing its protection while the roof fell. She rose from 46 to 49. 300% replaced the lost force, and no curse scar reopened. The 47th miner crossed. Only Unsol and I remained on the collapsing side. She told me I could jump through first while she closed the seam. I said 1 word, together, then waited where she could see me instead of making her follow my back. We stepped home side by side. Unsol rose from 42 to 45 because I stayed through the final count, shared the threshold, and returned on her timing. 300% surged only after our boots landed together. The long-range gate sealed cleanly. There was no dramatic kiss before the cameras. Unsol gripped my coat until the tremor left her hands, then leaned into me by choice. I held her only after she nodded. The crowd saw a rescue. I felt the old promise inside her finally answered once. The verified rescue paid 18,941 gold. After 4,478 for crystal work, medicine, rope, and plates, 14,463 remained, taking our funds to 31,749. All 47 miners testified. Reputation reached 52, and our C rank held. Kwan returned with the stolen crystal and no rescued passenger. I gave Miso the Son bolt and Jang's seal, while the miners laughed at the Sovereign Spear's empty hands. Our total love stood at 252, and power at 25,200%. Kwan's smile promised war. Before noon, Jang froze the mine payout in every household account, giving us 48 hours before foreclosure on our home. Jang froze 31,749 gold in our accounts and pasted a 48-hour foreclosure seal across our door. We had wealth on paper, no spendable coin for medicine or repairs, and a B-rank trial fee still due. Seo Tae-gyu arrived before breakfast with 5 separate annulment contracts. Each promised private housing, gear, and debt relief if one wife left. He called it rescue. I called no one ungrateful for reading, and placed every contract where its intended woman could choose. Baek Ye-rin came as an association marriage counselor, soft-voiced and apparently offended by Jang's pressure. She asked which wife I worried would leave first. I said that fear was mine to manage, not a suspicion I would lay on any of them. Nari's offer included an independent laboratory and legal protection for every recipe. She packed 2 notebooks and asked whether staying made her foolish. I said no answer for me could make departure betrayal. I would honor her work whether she stayed or left. Hae-jin's transfer deed described her and the Moonfang cub as protected assets. I asked if she wanted it preserved as evidence. She said burn it. I fed it to the stove, then handed her the ash without asking for thanks or promising the fire made us even. Hae-jin rose from 52 to 55 because I destroyed the ownership path she named and claimed no reward. 300% followed, while her cub stopped growling at the door. Ye-rin watched the panel's glow reflected in the window and said nothing. Guang-jin found one job that could clear before foreclosure: salvage a Leviathan core and rescue any river cruise caught in its wake. The buyer advanced gear as a recoverable cost, not cash, because our accounts could not release a single coin. The verified award was 31,846 gold. Armor patches, medicine, barge hire, and trial filing would deduct 7,277. If we failed, the advance became debt, and our home vanished by dusk. Nari set her antidote sale price at 2,319 gold per sealed case. Taegu offered double if I overruled her exclusive terms. I refused before the witnesses and entered her exact figure, territory, and refund clause in the contract. Nari reached 49 after I honored her price twice under pressure. 2 earned points, bringing 200%, and a signed sale under her name. Then she lifted her satchel. For one long breath, I thought our power, and far more, would leave with her. I did not show her the crimson total or mention foreclosure. I carried the satchel to the gate because she asked, then stepped back. Nari read Taegyu's laboratory deed and found his control over derivative recipes hidden beneath the protection clause. She tore only that offer and chose the salvage job on her own terms. Nari rose from 49 to 52 because I let leaving remain possible. 300% returned as consequence, but her choice, not the increase, was what let me breathe. A reporter asked whether Do-hyun stayed because an archer with broken sight had nowhere else to go. I wanted to answer. Instead, I asked her quietly whether public defense would help or take her voice. She told me to give her the speaking crystal. Do-hyun described her bond sense and named the parties that used her as bait. I stood behind her, not in front. She rose from 59 to 63. 400% followed, and 3 river scouts volunteered to obey her evacuation calls. When glare struck the water, she assigned me a blind position beside the mast. I accepted it without hovering over her. She climbed from 63 to 65, adding 200%, and her first curved arrow marked the Leviathan beneath the mirrored surface. Kwan's sovereign spear pierced the Leviathan's flank from the far bank, then drove it toward our salvage lane and 3 civilian barges. His dual writ protected the strike. It did not protect the families now sliding toward the creature's jaws. Hae-jin asked me to cut the capture chains from 2 river drakes so she could form a moving sanctuary. I cut both despite losing our strongest tow line. She rose from 55 to 58. 300% arrived, and the freed drakes carried children to shore. Seol-B requested every contract and private note in my coat before linking our anti-hex seal. I gave her the bundle and turned away while she inspected it at her own pace. She rose from 49 to 52. 300% came, and Ye-rin's first copied phrase was flagged. Nari ordered her cases opened for the poisoned deckhands, even though free doses reduced the sale. I followed her triage list and announced that choice as hers. She rose from 52 to 57. 500% followed, and 11 workers kept breathing. Hae-jin's transfer ash blew from her palm into the river. I did not turn it into a vow. I asked where she needed me, then guarded the sanctuary's open side. She rose from 58 to 61. 300% helped me hold the Leviathan's fin away from the barges. Seol-B found no secret bargain in my correspondence, only fears I had written and never sent. I let her keep reading and answered without touching her shoulder. She moved from 52 to 58. 600% strengthened our seal, which caught Kwan's legal hex. Do-hyun called a shot through white spray and asked me to trust a target I could not see. I turned the Leviathan exactly on her count. She rose from 65 to 68. 300% joined the force, and her arrow severed Kwan's steering chain instead of the beast's heart. Unsol could extract us, but not the civilians and core together. I told her the indeed would be hers, whether the salvage succeeded or not, then asked for her route. She moved from 45 to 48. 300% fixed a gate on our kitchen bell. I used 29,200% to turn Kwan's redirected charge into the empty flood wall. My shoulder tore, but the Leviathan survived. The core fragment fell free, and every civilian barge crossed Unsol's gate under her count. Before the payout cleared, I transferred the indeed to Unsol, with all 5 wives named as permanent co-occupants. I kept no reversion clause. She read it twice and asked whether home meant she had to stay. I said it meant she would always have a place to return to. Unsol rose from 48 to 52 for the deed without a leash, then to 55 when I followed her indirect return gate instead of choosing a faster route. 700% followed those acts, and every rescued family landed in our courtyard. Miso stamped the witnessed salvage clear as our B-rank trial. In releasing the frozen accounts, she found Jang had charged the same mine seizure fee twice. Reputation reached 61, and the first clean gap appeared in the association's books. The award paid 31,846 gold, deducting 7,277 for gear, medicine, barge, and filing, left 24,569, bringing our released funds to 56,318. Nari unpacked her notebooks by choice. I brewed terrible tea while she corrected me, and she laughed once before covering it with her cup. Across the room, each wife occupied home differently. None had stayed because a number, debt, or locked door required it. Our love stood at 299, and power at 29,900%. Yirin left with copies of my handwriting, 5 mapped insecurities, and a smile. By dawn, forged letters would claim I ranked my wives by the power they gave me. The letters used my hand, my private turns of phrase, and details only a wife or counselor should know. One called Do-hyun the best return on trust. Another called Haejin useful when afraid. Each reduced a marriage to the power it supplied. My crimson panel showed 299 love and 29,900%. I closed it. If I displayed those numbers as proof, I would make Ye-rin's ugliest claim true, that their feelings existed to certify my strength. Ye-rin appeared beside So-yeon with perfect sympathy and said, doubt was not betrayal. For once, she told the truth. I placed my original journal on the table, said every question was allowed, and promised no one had to believe me on command. So-yeon asked for the journal and time alone. I gave her both, then sat outside without checking her love level. She rose from 68 to 71 because privacy remained hers, even when I feared its answer. 300% came unseen and unused. When she opened the door, she asked why I had written that her silence frightened me. I answered that I feared missing hurt, not losing power. She asked 6 more questions. I answered each without opening the panel, and she moved from 71 to 74. The extra 300% did not erase the letters. Its consequence was smaller and harder. So-yeon handed me the journal back, but kept the forged page for examination. Trust had resumed work. It had not become blind faith. Our A-rank trial would escort 83 refugees through the Glasswood Pass. The verified award was 40,782 gold. Wagon repair, medicine, route permits, and filing would cost 7,643. Haejin's pack recoiled from my scent after reading the forged claim that I valued obedient beasts. I asked whether she wanted me near. She chose 12 paces away. I held that distance, and she rose from 61 to 64. The pack's growls eased. Seul B offered a truth seal, then flinched as if the offer itself made her a tool. I said she could write every limit and withdraw at any point. She moved from 58 to 61. 300% followed, and she began drafting rather than bracing for an order. A forged letter claimed Nari's prices were mine, and her anger required my control. I asked her to compose the correction, including anything unflattering about me. She rose from 57 to 60. 300% followed, and the record began in her voice. Na-ri stated that I followed instructions slowly, brewed tea badly, and owned no part of her work. I recorded every word without editing. She climbed from 60 to 64, 400% came, and 3 contract buyers countersigned her authorship. Taegyu offered independent protection if she rode in his armored carriage. I told Na-ri the choice was hers and kept loading her cases at her price. She chose our medicine wagon, not as proof of love, but because its patients had already received her dosing charts. Eun-sol proposed an indirect gate through a moss ravine, adding 11 minutes but avoiding the coordinate printed in Zhang's route order. I asked her to choose without defending it to the trial board. She rose from 55 to 58, and the first wagons vanished safely. The ravine path doubled back so sharply that Kwon called it cowardice. I followed Eun-sol through both decoys without asking for the destination. She rose from 58 to 62, 400% strengthened me, while the convoy slipped past a planted landslide. Ye-rin stepped from the rain wearing the perfume named in one forged confession. She reached for my sleeve before the watching wives. I stepped away and said no, not as theater, not while checking a gauge, but because intimacy offered as a weapon was still intrusion. Ye-rin's witness swore I had read the ranking aloud in a private room. His account included a window on the north wall. That room had no window, but I did not demand belief from the wives. I answered dates, doors, and every embarrassing detail they asked. Seulbi finished her truth seal. 7 questions, no hidden memories, release at 2 fingers, and no transfer of pain. I accepted every limit before offering my palm. She rose from 61 to 64. 300% arrived as the seal opened cleanly. The seal proved my answers truthful, not that anyone owed me trust. Seulbi said that distinction publicly. I thanked her and withdrew my hand on her first release signal. She rose from 64 to 67. Another 300% came, and her nerves stayed clear. Kwon planted his spear across the road and invoked a legal dual writ while mirrored bolts struck the rear wagons. If I cased him, refugees died. If I ignored him, the writ branded us cowards. Ye-rin had built a choice where every appearance served her lie. Haejin asked me to move beyond the pack, not beside her. I obeyed through the first charge and let her choose which beasts guarded which wagon. She rose from 64 to 68. 400% followed, and her sanctuary spread without frenzy. Na-ri ordered exactly 13 drops of smoke antidote per water skin. I repeated the dose over the channel, credited her, and refused an impatient guard's demand for more. She rose from 64 to 67. 300% followed, and no refugee overdosed. Seo-yeon found Kwon through reflected glare and called a shot past my ear. I did not duck or correct her lane. She rose from 74 to 77. 300% came after the trust, and her arrow pinned his spear shadow without touching him. Haejin told me the pack would hold the center if I left it unguarded. I took her word and shielded the rear wagon instead. She rose from 68 to 71. 300% followed, while her beasts protected children with no collars or commands from me. Eun-sol opened the final exit somewhere I could not see and told me to take the long way back. I followed her path through 2 empty thresholds. She rose from 62 to 65. 300% arrived when I returned beside the last refugee wagon. Kwon drove the sovereign spear toward me with the dual writ blazing. I had 34,700%, but no strike was worth a wagon. I turned the first thrust into my shield, took the wound, and kept my body between his spear and the refugees. Seo-yeon severed the writ's anchor. Seulbi reflected its coercion clause. Na-ri cleared the poison. Haejin's pack closed the flank, and Eun-sol moved the wagons. Their mastered flaws created the opening. I used it only to disarm Kwon, not pursue him. The trial officials witnessed his spear fall, while all 83 refugees remained alive. Ye-rin asked which wife had made me strongest. I answered that the question was false. 5 different women had chosen 5 different acts. None existed as a rank in my heart. I heard each wife reject Ye-rin's premise in her own words. No shared performance, no crimson display. Miso entered the journal. Truth seal limits. Na-ri's correction, root record, and witness error into evidence. Our reputation reached 69, and the board stamped A rank. The convoy paid 40,782 gold, after 7,643 for repairs, medicine, permits, and filing. 33,139 remained, raising our funds to 89,457. Our love stood at 347, and power at 34,700%. At home, nobody rushed forgiveness. We ate together, questions still welcome. Outside, Yerin watched our lit windows and prepared a false confession in my voice. After the A-rank convoy, we reached home with torn coats, empty canteens, and 34,700% power earned from trust I still feared mishandling. As the last refugee wagon left, seizure lanterns surrounded our inn, and Quan lowered his spear at our door. Jang Mu Chol's writ called the building Dangerous Association Property. Behind Quan, enforcers rolled up barrier breakers. Behind us, frightened guests crowded the wagons. Taegyu's carriages waited at the rear alley, offering my wives safety if they abandoned me before dawn. Our reserves were frozen. We had one night of barrier fuel, 213 lines of curse ink, and no replacement portal stone. I wanted to put all 5 women behind me. Seo-yeon looked at the guests and ordered me to stop guarding the wrong people. Seo-yeon told me to escort the guests while she held the sunlit roof alone. Every old fear in me said love meant never leaving her exposed. I obeyed anyway, because she had not asked for a shield. She had asked me to trust the archer she had fought to become. I carried the last child below as glare bombs burst over the tiles. Seo-yeon shut her eyes, read danger through our bond, and curved 3 arrows around the chimney into the hidden lures. Because I followed her command, her love rose from 77 to 86. That earned 900% more power, but its consequence belonged to everyone. The cellar door held when a breaker struck, and Seo-yeon's unseen shots cleared an escape lane. She landed beside me smiling once, while Quan learned that separating us could still mean obeying her. The Moonfang cub powered a ward by pacing inside Heijin's sanctuary, and keeping it there would have strengthened our barricade. Then Taegyu's men smoked the stable. I opened the ward and returned the cub to Heijin, even though the barrier meter dropped by 17 marks. I told her the cub was hers to protect, not mine to spend. Heijin carried it through the smoke, turned her feared monoscent outward, and made every panicked mount kneel around the guests. That choice raised her love from 71 to 81, not because it was useful, but because it was free. Her 10 points added 1,000% to my strength, enough to lift a fallen beam without crushing the stable hands beneath it. More importantly, her sanctuary broke Taegyu's extraction line. Every carriage beast refused his reins and walked calmly back to the household. Ye Rin's mirror shards spoke in my voice. I ranked Na-ri third, praised her amplifiers, and planned to discard her when the trial ended. My power flickered because the lie touched her real shame. I had once counted strength while the women beside me needed reassurance. I did not order Na-ri to trust me. I admitted I was panicking, that losing the inn frightened me, and that pretending calm would poison her brew. She took that honest fear as a catalyst, balanced it against her anger, and stabilized the barrier mixture without denying either emotion. Because I gave her truth instead of a performance, Na-ri's love rose from 67 to 77. The resulting 1,000% returned as the brew sealed 6 breaches at once. Her recipe, spoken under her own name, also exposed the false voice's impossible breathing pauses. Jang's curse wires found the bond channel and drove their rebound toward Suobi's nerves. If she held it, I kept my power. If she cut it, the east wall might fall. I put the ink knife in her hand and asked her to sever me the instant the channel caused pain. Selby studied my face, then wrote a 2-way seal only after choosing the terms herself. The curse turned, raced backward through the seizure writ, and branded its hidden author. My willingness to lose strength for her safety raised her love from 67 to 76. I felt those 9 points restore 900%, yet the real consequence was hers. For the first time, a rebound crossed her seal without entering her body. Jang's authorization mark burned across every copied writ, and Miso saw the evidence through the records room window. Miso had 6 minutes before Jang's clerks burned the seizure ledger. Unsol could open one gate with our cracked stone, but its return face would collapse in 241 seconds. I promised I would be back beside her at the attic bell before the last 7 seconds. I crossed, found Miso under a desk with the copied leaves, and refused the tempting cabinet of rank seals. We returned with the proof as the gate twisted toward empty sky. I landed beside Unsol when the bell showed 5 seconds, keeping the precise promise instead of bringing home trophies. Because I returned when and where I had promised, Unsol's love rose from 65 to 74, adding 900%. Her chosen home snapped the wandering rift straight, so Miso and every ledger page reached the attic, while the cracked stone finally turned to dust. Kwon entered through both doors at once, sovereign spear wrapped in association lightning. Jang's projection ordered him to seize the 5 women as dependent assets. Behind me, the crimson display held at 394 love and 39,400% power. I did not charge alone. Seo-yeon's arrows erased Kwon's blind angles. Haejin's sanctuary calmed the summoned hounds. Nari's barrier brew absorbed the lightning. Sulbi reflected the writ's binding curse. Unsol folded the hall so every spear thrust returned empty. I used the strength their freely earned love allowed, but their mastered flaws made the opening. One trained strike broke Kwon's spearhead without touching his throat. The inn survived because 5 specialists fought as wives and adventurers, not because one husband became a larger weapon. I listened as Miso read the copied seizure entries in the rain. Barrier sabotage, false dependency stamps, and Taegyu's payment for 5 extraction rooms. Yerin fled before her mirror shards cooled. Jang called the pages stolen, until Sulbi's reflected authorization glowed beneath his signature. I watched the neutral evaluators record a sovereign-class assault, a civilian evacuation, and a clean non-lethal defense as S-rank eligibility earned by the whole household. Jang could delay the ceremony, but he could not erase what 300 guests had seen. I counted 59,814 gold from the defense award and released convoy claim. Barrier fuel, medicine, repairs, and the lost portal stone cost 12,447, leaving a net gain of 47,367 gold. Our funds stood at 136,824 gold, reputation at 78, and rank at S. Yet Seo-yeon's bowstring was burned, Haejin's cub coughed smoke, and Sulbi could barely hold a cut. Victory had invoices no state line showed. So I cooked badly while Nari corrected the portions, and I listened as each woman named what frightened her during the siege. I made no group apology designed to save time. 5 marriages had been attacked in 5 different places, and each deserved its own repair. No crimson number moved during breakfast, which reassured me. Love was not applause after battle. It had risen through particular choices with particular costs, and now it needed ordinary care. Fresh bandages, quiet rooms, a repaired latch, and the patience not to call survival finished. By sunset, 5 invitations arrived in Taegyu's gold-edged hand. 5 estates, 5 private offers, 5 versions of a life without shared danger. Yerin had annotated each one with a different accusation about which wife I loved most. The next attack wore silk instead of armor. I started drafting one grand answer, then tore it up. Equal love could not mean identical words, identical gifts, or identical wounds. Seo-yeon needed trust, Haejin freedom, Nari authorship, Sulbi consent, and Unsol a return. I owed 5 conversations, not 1 performance. The household had won a war and earned S rank, but the silence around our table told me the harder trial was waiting. I placed each invitation before the women it addressed and said I would listen before answering. Outside, a storm rift opened over the city like a black eye. I saw why Taegyu's offers were cruel. Each was thoughtful. A shaded range for Soyeon, a sanctuary deed for Haejin, a private laboratory for Nari, a painless clinic for Sulbi, and a permanent gatehouse for Unsol. 5 dreams priced at 1 anomen each. Yerin broadcast that equal love should look identical, then displayed our unequal time, gifts, and words as proof of ranking. I began a grand speech about loving everyone the same. 5 guarded faces stopped me. Sameness was the lie. Care had always required attention to difference. A storm rift contract sounded over the city before noon. 86 trapped surveyors, payment only upon verified extraction. We had 10 hours before collapse. I accepted the work, but first I asked each wife for the private conversation the enemy claimed I was too cowardly to have. Seo-yeon did not want another promise that I would protect her from brightness. She wanted me to understand what brightness did. She blindfolded me, spun 3 glare mirrors, and made me follow the tiny changes in air that she used when sight fractured into false distances. I missed, stumbled, and asked her to teach me again, instead of pretending one lesson made us equal. Then I trained under her blindfold until I could identify her position by bowstring and breath. Being believed as an expert raised her love from 86 to 93. Her 7 points added 700%, but the immediate consequence was practical. She mapped the storm rift by pressure where association optics saw only glare. I entered the contract carrying her route in my muscles, not merely swearing I would trust it later. Haejin's offer promised a sanctuary under Taegyu's name, with every beast classified as transferable stock. I used part of our recovered claim to lease the South Paddock, then wrote one restriction into the registry. No animal there could be sold with the land. I handed Haejin the unsigned keeper page and asked her to define the sanctuary herself. She added release rights, refusal of binding, and care chosen by the pack. Helping build freedom without attaching ownership raised her love from 81 to 89. I felt 8 points become 800%, and the paddock answered before the system glow faded. Rift beasts that had clawed every handler entered Haejin's alpha sanctuary calmly, then volunteered their scent trail toward the trapped surveyors instead of being driven there. Na-ri expected me to compete with Taegyu's laboratory by praising her profitable recipes. Instead, I returned the first notebook she had tried to burn, the one full of split tonics, sour antidotes, and margins where she had written that she was too unstable to continue. I admitted I kept it because her persistence moved me, not because it hid a marketable formula. She read the page where I had marked the day she tried again, cried without apologizing, and chose to carry the notebook herself. Her love rose from 77 to 86. Those 9 points added 900%. Their consequence came when she used one recorded failure to correct the storm draft's resonance. Instead of exploding under fear, the mixture converted our honest tension into a stable amplifier she alone could authorize. Taegyu's clinic promised to erase Sulbi's scars, as if the marks were the reason she deserved tenderness. She showed them to me without sleeves and waited for pity. I kept my hands in my lap, listened to what each scar had cost, and did not call her survival beautiful for my comfort. Only when Sulbi reached first did I take her hand. I thanked her for trusting me with history, not for making pain easier to look at. Receiving the truth without touching, fixing, or pitying until invited raised her love from 76 to 84. Her 8 points added 800%, and her curse control sharpened with it. She wrote a painless boundary seal around our storm gear. When Jang's hidden kill order tried to bind the straps, the command stopped at her line instead of rebounding through her nerves. Unsol's gatehouse offer promised a destination that could never move, but its deed forbade her from opening unsanctioned routes. I gave her a key to our repaired inn and said, home was where I promised to return, not where she was required to remain waiting for me. Then I stepped outside and asked her to lock the door from within, so the choice of opening it remained hers. She opened a portal instead and met me on the road laughing. The key without a leash raised her love from 74 to 82. I felt those 8 points add 800%. The consequence stabilized her storm coordinates around a living idea of home rather than a building. 3 precise rescue gates appeared across the rift, each able to return evacuees to whichever safe shelter they chose. Ye-rin released edited clips as we deployed. I seemed to tell Seo-yeon I followed only her, Haejin that freedom mattered most, Na-ri that persistence moved me most, Sulbi that trust was sacred, and Unsol that home belonged to her. Contradiction, she called it. We released the unedited conversations ourselves. Different words did not rank the women. They answered different wounds. One by one, my wives said why another woman's need did not diminish her own. The crowd heard 5 distinct vows, and Ye-rin's identical love argument collapsed. No number rose from winning the debate. The 40 points had already been earned in private choices, where applause could not counterfeit them. At 434 love and 43,400% power, we crossed the storm boundary together. Kwon waited on an inverted tower with Jang's sealed order. Classify the surveyors lost, kill me during instability, and blame Unsol's gate. He drove his spear through the first return coordinate. I chose rescue formation over pursuit, while the storm tore whole streets overhead. I followed as Do-hyun called safe motion through blinding rain. Haejin's pack carried the injured. Nari rationed 437 drops of stabilizer. Sulbi caught the kill curse. Unsol moved evacuees in groups of 11, adapting each destination to medical need. Kwon struck whenever I braced a shelf, but 43,400% meant nothing without training and timing. I took 2 cuts, redirected his third thrust, and used the opening only to free the final surveyor. The storm recorded who attacked and who rescued. All 86 surveyors returned alive. The contract crystals preserved Jang's kill order and Kwon's attack, while our unedited conversations cleared the household publicly. Neutral reviewers recorded S+ eligibility at 7 marks, with reputation rising from 78 to 85. The rescue contract paid 73,286 gold. Storm reagents, sanctuary lease, gear wards, beast care, and medical supplies cost 11,347, so our funds rose by 61,939 gold. We closed at 198,763 gold. The sum could buy comfort, but not a single point we had earned. I watched Taegyu's 5 invitation cases wash down the gutter and understood why their luxury had failed. None contained a choice. Jang answered exposure by scheduling our SS trial inside a sovereign rift. The packet listed finite supplies, 1 repaired anchor stone, and an official map so clean that Do-hyun distrusted it immediately. Kwon's copy, glimpsed in the storm recording, showed a different safe route. Miso's message warned that fraud would become admissible only if we produced a clean trial record. Refusing meant surrendering the evidence. Entering meant walking into a charted execution. I placed the official map beside our household notes and asked whose route we would trust. 5 hands covered Jang's paper. No one recited the same vow, and no one needed to. We packed arrows, feed, antidote, ink, and 1 stone repaired too many times. At dawn, the association opened the sovereign rift and announced a trial it expected us not to survive. The SS trial issued us 31 arrows, 6 feed bricks, 184 measures of curse ink, 9 antidote doses, and 1 anchor stone repaired along a hairline fracture. Every item was signed as sound. 3 failed inspection before we crossed. Taegyu offered each wife a private exit carriage. Ye-rin waited beside them, with annulments already bearing forged thumbprints. We refused without speeches and entered under Miso's recording seal, because only a clean, completed trial could turn Jang's sabotage into admissible proof. Our opening state was 434 love, 43,400% power, S+ rank, 85 reputation, and 198,763 gold. None of it gave us a second arrow or another route home. Jang's official map led straight across a glass basin marked safe. So-hyun heard no echo from its center and said the ground was hollow. Kwon's team vanished along an unseen northern ridge. The judges ordered me to follow the document or accept disqualification. I folded the official map and followed So-hyun's route without demanding a visible target. Her bond sense found pressure seams under the glare, and her arrows marked stone the chart denied. Choosing her unseen expertise over Jang's seal raised her love from 93 to 97. Those 4 points added 400%. The consequence arrived behind us. The glass basin collapsed into spear pits while our ridge held. So-hyun's last marker also struck the hidden trial camera Jang had angled away, forcing its lens to record the false map in my hand. The false ridge exit emptied into a sovereign wolf nursery. Our 6 feed bricks could distract the adults for perhaps 70 seconds, and the rules awarded points for kills. Haejin said the alpha wanted peace, then walked into the den with her weapons lowered. I followed because she asked me to trust what her mana scent told her, not because the wolves had become harmless. She returned 1 stolen pup tag found in our issued feed. The alpha exposed a safe tunnel and accepted no chain. Her love rose from 89 to 95. 6 points added 600%, and Heijin's sanctuary turned a kill trap into passage. The wolves carried our defective feed back to the trial camera, where Jang's quartermaster stamp was visible. We preserved every antidote dose and left the den without a carcass. Poison Rain began with 9 antidote doses for 6 people and a 4-hour crossing. Na-ryu discovered 3 vials were diluted, leaving exactly enough only if no one chased Kwon. I asked for her approved measure and swallowed it, though the low dose left my lungs burning. When the Sovereign Guardian rose, 1 extra amplifier might have doubled my strike. I refused to pressure Na-ri for it after she said the resonance would rupture my heart. Trusting her limit over immediate power raised her love from 86 to 93. Her 7 points added 700%, but restraint was the useful consequence. Na-ri converted the unused amplifier into poison neutralizer for all 6 coats. We crossed alive with 2 verified samples of diluted antidote, evidence stronger than a reckless victory could have been. The bridge curse named Solbi as its source, preparing to make her absorb the trial's failure. Its hidden line ran outward toward an author beyond the rift. I did not ask her to endure 1 more rebound for our record. I asked whether she wanted the path left open. Selby invited me into a 2-way seal and turned the curse toward its writer. I braced the bridge while she traced the true source, never pulling the pain into herself. Letting her reflect rather than suffer raised her LOVE from 84 to 91. 7 points added, 700%. Across the public crystal, Jang's signing hand spasmed, and the hidden command wrote his clerk code over the bridge. Sulbi remained standing. The curse ink cost only 27 measures, and our clean record gained its author. Kwon had removed the return socket and sealed his safe route behind him. Our repaired stone could open 1 untested home gate, but the void distorted every remembered coordinate. Unsol asked me to speak the memory that made our inn home, while everyone else crossed first. I described the patched table, 5 different teacups, and the door she once opened by choice. Then I stepped last into her untested gate, trusting her chosen anchor with no association coordinate beneath it. That act raised Unsol's love from 82 to 88. 6 points added 600%. The consequence fixed the gate long enough for all 6 of us, the evidence samples, and the trial crystal to cross. I emerged beside Unsol in our dining room while the association's empty memorial bell began ringing outside. Jang had announced us dead 11 minutes earlier. He praised Kwon's failed rescue, blamed 5 unstable wives, and displayed Ye-rin's annulments as proof they meant to leave me. Then Unsol's gate opened through the memorial portrait, and we walked out carrying the trial crystal. Kwon attacked before the judges could stop the feed. At 46,400%, I could survive his sovereign thrusts, not erase them. Seo-yeon called angles, Heijin cleared civilians, Na-ri timed my dose, Sul-bi caught the kill seal, and Unsol shortened each retreat. I broke Kwon's guard only after all 5 created the opening, then stopped with my fist at his chest. A clean trial required control. The crystal recorded his true map beneath his armor, Jang's false death announcement, and our intact evidence returning from the route meant to kill us. I watched Miso authenticate every frame against the gate clock. The defective inventory, contradictory maps, quartermaster stamp, curse code, stolen socket, and premature memorial formed one continuous chain. Jang called each fault accidental. The timing made coincidence impossible. The judges awarded SS at 8 marks because we completed the Sovereign Rift objectives, preserved life, and returned a valid record without using forbidden aid. Reputation rose to 91. Jang retained emergency authority, but his fraud was now evidence rather than rumor. I counted 92,873 gold in trial compensation and sovereign salvage. Antidotes, feed, ink, arrow replacement, anchor repair, and medical care cost 15,217, leaving 77,656 gold net. I watched our funds reach 276,419 gold. Love stood at 464, and power at 46,400%. 30 points had come from 5 acts under scarcity. None came from winning SS or embarrassing Jang. We counted what remained: 4 sound arrows, 3 feed bricks, 72 measures of ink, 2 antidote doses, and an anchor stone now split beyond repair. Progress had cost resources and blood. Our rank had climbed, but our next fight would begin with less equipment, not more. I spent the evening helping each wife restore her tools according to her directions. Courtship did not pause when grinding ended. It was built into how we cleaned poison from a bow, fed a tired pack, labeled formulas, capped ink, and set a gate key back by the door. Ye-Rin answered our evidence with a memory no ledger could audit. Above the capital, her illusion showed me entering her room willingly, speaking private phrases only my wives knew, and choosing her over them. Even I recognized my own smallest habits in the reflected body. Tae-gyu stood beneath it, offering protection to any wife who doubted. Kwon seized the capital gate under Jang's emergency order, while Arkhov wagons rolled toward the furnaces. The trap asked us to fight outside, while perfect-looking betrayal burned us apart within. I closed the crimson display before looking at my wives. Numbers could report love, but they could not promise innocence, demand belief, or survive being used as an argument. Seo-yeon stepped toward the illusion's impossible light, and I let her examine it without defending myself. Ye-Rin's reflected memory had no visible seam. It wore my face, used my private pauses, and repeated words spoken only behind our inn door. She admitted no magical lie detector could disprove it. Around me, 464 love felt less like proof than a loaded weapon. I shut the display and refused to show it again. If I pointed at their percentages, I would be bargaining. Believe me or lose my strength. Tae-gyu opened 5 guarded carriages and promised status, privacy, and escape to whichever wife doubted first. Nari took 1 step toward his laboratory coach. Her gauge flickered at 93 but did not fall. I nearly called her back, then stopped. Love that could not leave was ownership. I told all 5 women they could investigate, refuse me, or walk away safely. I would answer questions, but I would not convert their fear into a trial of loyalty. Seo-yeon studied the illusion's light while the crowd demanded my defense. I did not explain what she should see. I held the mirrors at her chosen angles and trusted her conclusion, even when she asked me to recreate a painful gesture the false body had copied. She found the betrayal's flaw. The reflected me tracked glare with sight, while I had learned from her to turn toward pressure and sound. Because I believed her judgment instead of overruling it with my innocence, Seo-yeon's love rose from 97 to 99. 2 points added 200%. Her conclusion also gave us a battlefield consequence. She shot through 6 projected copies and struck Ye-Rin's hidden light prism without touching the civilians behind it. The memory stayed persuasive, but its source was no longer invisible. Haejin said Ye-Rin's veil carried my mana scent. Calling her beasts could have forced a quick answer, but it would also turn doubt into a public spectacle. I asked Haejin to scent test the fabric herself and kept the pack beyond the square, trusting her senses alone. She found borrowed mana layered over mirror resin and traced it to a vial taken from my blood after the poisoned SS trial. Letting her investigate without summoning obedience or demanding reassurance raised Haejin's love from 95 to 99. I felt 4 points add 400%. The practical consequence was sharper. Haejin spread her alpha sanctuary through the occupied gate, and every rift beast ignored Kwon's command scent. Ye-Rin could copy mana, but she could not manufacture the trust that made a pack choose. Nari entered Tae-gyu's laboratory because it offered everything our patched workroom lacked. He promised soul credit, endless reagents, and safety from my battles. I followed only when she invited me, then asked whether a truth catalyst could test the reflected blood. She refused. A reagent might expose borrowed mana, she said, but using it to certify love would make every future feeling a sample under glass. I accepted her refusal immediately and offered to leave the laboratory with no answer. Her near-falling trust steadied because I did not press. Nari chose to leave after Tae-gyu claimed her authorship required his protection. Outside, I funded her independent test of the mirror resin and signed no claim to it. Respecting both refusal and authorship raised her love from 93 to 98, adding 500%. Theol B could read the fear beneath my words. but her old habit was to pull another person's poison into herself. I entered her seal only after she named the limit. She would witness my fear, not carry it, soothe it, or accept pain as the price of believing me. I let her read that I feared losing them and feared deserving it, without turning either fear into proof of innocence. When she closed the channel, I thanked her and kept the burden mine. That boundary raised Sulbi's love from 91 to 97. 6 points added 600%. The consequence appeared in her next seal. Kwan's emergency curse struck, crossed the two-way path, and returned to the association command post without grazing her nerves. Witnessing me without absorbing me had strengthened her control. Eun-sol opened a gate and refused to name its destination. Her oldest wound asked whether I returned only when I controlled the route. The capital fight waited behind us, but I stepped through because she chose the path and because trust offered after certainty was merely calculation. The gate dropped me on a silent shore where no system signal reached. Eun-sol asked one question: would I still return if the numbers vanished? I said I would search until we could return together. She reopened the way, and we crossed side by side into the capital. Following her unannounced route and returning with her raised Eun-sol's love from 88 to 94, adding 600%, its consequence anchored a hidden approach behind Kwan's occupation, giving our household one route his stolen association coordinates could not predict. At 487 love and 48,700% power, I was stronger than before, not invincible. Kwan had chained the capital gate to his sovereign spear, so every direct blow widened the rift above thousands of homes. Force alone would kill the people we came to save. Do-hyun shot the light relays. Haejin calmed the gate beasts. Nari dissolved mirror resin from the controls. Sulbi reflected the emergency curse, and Eun-sol opened her hidden approach. I fought Kwan inside the narrow margin their work created, taking a wound rather than breaking the chain. We reclaimed the controls, but Kwan escaped through Jang's archive route with his spear intact. That imperfect victory mattered. The numbers had given me enough strength to hold him. The women's choices gave us a way to save the capital without becoming the calamity. I counted 103,786 gold from the Gate Reclamation Award. Mirror analysis, emergency medicine, portal braces, beast care, and civic repairs cost 14,333, leaving 89,453 gold net. I watched our funds reach 365,872 gold, reputation 96, while rank remained SS. The 23 love points came from 5 different acts. Their 2,300% increase could be counted, but the reasons could not be exchanged. Nari handed me Taegyu's unsigned laboratory deed. She had almost chosen it, and I did not minimize that truth. We spoke until the temptation stopped being shame and became information. Safety mattered to her, and our marriage had to make room for that need without purchasing her. There was no group ceremony. Across separate private evenings, I listened as each wife named the last fear Ye-rin had reached. Each freely renewed her vows in her own words. I answered without checking the display, and each door closed only after an invitation freely given. Affection deepened by consent, tenderness, and time. The night deepened, and nothing intimate became evidence for anyone else. By morning, 5 rooms held 5 different silences, restful, chosen, and beyond the reach of Ye-rin's projectors or my crimson interface. The numbers did not rise again, and I was grateful. A vow was not a transaction completed by closeness. Seo-yeon rested at 99, Haejin at 99, Nari at 98, Sulbi at 97, and Eun-sol at 94. Near complete, still freely unfinished. Miso's emergency flare rose at dawn. Jang had begun burning the original archive while chaining a sovereign rift beneath it. Her message gave us 37 minutes, 1 surviving portal stone, and a choice between preserving the ledgers or stalking the calamity before it reached the capital. Kwan guarded the archive bridge. Ye-rin and Taegyu broadcast one final appeal for my wives to save themselves by leaving. I packed 1 antidote set. Sulbi counted the remaining ink. Seo-yeon chose 5 arrows, and Haejin released the cub from its travel harness. Eun-sol opened our last gate. I did not ask the women to complete their bonds for the power we lacked. I asked whether they still chose this battlefield. 5 wives stepped beside me, for 5 reasons of their own, and together we entered the burning archive. We entered with 37 minutes, 1 portal stone, 1 antidote set, 5 arrows, 61 measures of curse ink, and no safe route back. Miso was trapped in the records vault, while Jang's sovereign rift chains pulled the burning archive inward, room by room. Ye-rin's voice filled the halls, offering my wives clean exits. Taegyu promised each a fortune if she stepped through his gates before collapse. I gave no counteroffer. I asked only who still chose the mission. 5 answers came separately, and all 5 moved beside me. Our opening power was 48,700%, enormous, trained, and still short of the force needed to contain a chained sovereign rift. I refused to ask for the missing love. Completion had to come from the marriage, never from the emergency. The first chain node moved behind furnace glare no sight could track. Seo-yeon said she had 1 threat-seeking shot and ordered me away from her line. I wanted to shield her and correct for the collapsing floor. Instead, I trusted the archer completely and moved where she commanded. I watched her arrow curve through smoke, ignore 3 mirrored decoys, and sever the unseen node. Trusting her final shot without shielding or correcting her completed Seo-yeon's love from 99 to 100, adding the first 100%. The consequence ran through the building, the west furnace shut, buying 4 minutes and exposing Ye-rin's projector cables. Seo-yeon's former weakness, light that ruined her sight, became cover no enemy could read. She lowered her bow as my equal, not someone I had saved. Jang had collared confiscated beasts around the ledger vault, including Heijin's Moonfang cub. Its harness could guide the pack safely, but Heijin cut it free. I released the cub to choose its own path, though losing it might have sent every beast against us. The cub sniffed the open corridor, looked at Heijin, and chose our pack without collar, contract, or command. Accepting that free choice completed Heijin's love from 99 to 100 and added another 100% to my power. I watched her alpha sanctuary spread through the vault. The sovereign beasts lay down, then carried trapped clerks toward Unsol's route. A class once condemned for enraging creatures now freed every animal Jang had treated as loot, and the second chain node fell beneath their chosen charge. Nari found 1 dose that could preserve either Miso's ledgers or a cabinet of sovereign crystals worth a fortune. I placed the antidote in her hand and chose the archive, then broadcast that the formula, method, and decision belonged to Park Nari before touching any loot. I preserved her authorship over wealth and let her make the final allocation. She split the antidote by a resonance method only she understood, saving the ledgers and the clerks while abandoning the crystals. That choice raised her love from 98 to 100. I felt her 2 points add 200%. The consequence was not lost wealth, but public truth. Her antidote turned the poison fire clear, letting Miso's original auction books appear on every live crystal. Nari's emotional honesty made evidence survive where suppression would have failed. Jang activated the command glyph once used to force Sulbi into carrying other people's curses. The engine offered one brutal solution. She could absorb it and buy us seconds. I refused. I stayed outside her seal until she explicitly invited me into the two-way path. Sulbi took my hand by choice, set the terms aloud, and reflected Jang's curse through me without letting it enter her nerves. My obedience to her invitation completed her love from 97 to 100, adding 300%. I watched the consequence shatter the curse engine and write every hidden kill order across Jang's walls. Sulbi stood uninjured while his authority seals bound his wrists. Her rebound had become a weapon against its source, and no one else's survival required her pain. Unsol opened the last gate for Miso, the ledgers, and the rescued clerks. The stone split before she could cross. I remained with her on the doomed side, though the core timer showed 83 seconds and the system could not reach us through the collapsing space. I would not fulfill my promise by escaping alone. We rebuilt the route from shared memories, the bell cord, the patched table, the key she chose to use, until her home answered. Staying until we could return together raised Unsol's love from 94 to 100. Her 6 points added 600% and completed the final bond. The consequence stabilized a gate no stone powered. Yunsol folded the doomed bridge into our chosen home, carried us both through, and left a precise corridor back to the Sovereign Rift core. I saw the crimson display open without command. Seo-yeon, Hae-jin, Na-ri, Sul-bi, and Unsol each read 100%. Combined love reached 500%. Power reached 50,000%, the maximum, earned across years of wounds, choices, work, and time. The increase did not grant technique. It gave my trained body exactly 1,300% more force than I had entered with, enough to hold the exposed core for 5 women to act. I braced the chains while each wife attacked the failure her once broken class now mastered. I watched threat-seeking arrows mark the nodes, sanctuary calm the rift beasts, resonance neutralize the core poison, a two-way seal reflect the collapse, and a home gate fold released force upward. 50,000% mattered because all 6 of us knew what to do with it. Kwon challenged me before the capital and called devotion borrowed strength. His sovereign spear split the bridge, but the broadcast showed every choice that had completed our bonds. I met him with power I had not taken and skill earned through every painful rank below SS. He was still dangerous. So-yeon removed his blind angle. Hae-jin broke his mount's command. Na-ri timed my final antidote. Sul-bi returned his binding writ, and Unsol placed my step. I struck once through the opening all 5 created, and the sovereign spear fell. I spared Kwon and broke the final chain instead. The rift folded into Unsol's corridor. Na-ri cooled it. Hae-jin guided its creatures. Sul-bi sealed its curse, and So-yeon severed the last hidden node. The capital survived, and the rank crystal revealed SSS at 9 marks. Miso broadcast the originals. Jang's debt marriage scheme, illegal beast auctions, frozen payouts, false dependency stamps, mine sabotage, rigged trials, and kill orders. The same chain traced Yerin's forgeries and Taegyu's inducements, with dates, seals, and payments intact. I watched our reputation reach 100 as independent judges stripped Jang's emergency authority and opened criminal review. Yerin's perfect memory dissolved beside the blood vial invoice that built it. Taegyu's 5 luxury deeds appeared beside the extraction payments he denied. I counted 146,728 gold in lawful bounties, released claims, and restitution. Medical care, civic repair, archive recovery, beast treatment, and gear cost 26,387, netting 120,341. Our funds closed at 486,213 gold, but we did not buy a grander home. We repaired the inn, funded Hae-jin's sanctuary and Nari's laboratory, restored Sul-bi's archive, shaded So-yeon's range, and built Unsol a free gatehouse. I had begun as the F-rank man mocked for 7 years and handed 5 marriages as punishment. I ended part 1 at SSS, not because the system gave me love, but because 5 women saw every failure, kept their freedom, and chose a life with me that no number could command. On the final page, the crimson light settles instead of flaring. Love, 500%, plus power, 50,000%. Seo-yeon, Hae-jin, Nari, Sul-bi, and Unsol, my 5 wives, stand beside me by choice, not behind me, not beneath a rank, beside me.